You know the best thing about Islam? The best thing about Islam is how simple it is, because there's wrong and right.
It's a simple religion.
It's wrong and right. I mean, you look at other religions and it's also subjective now. It's the last true religion. If you don't have a strong barrier, if you don't have a yes and a no, you don't have a religion. If you tolerate everything, you stand for nothing. And if you believe in God and you say, I believe in God, but I'm not a Muslim, I'm going to say, okay, that's fine. You're a Christian. What is Christianity anymore? What does it mean? You can go to a Christian country, and America, let's take, for example, and you'll get in more trouble for insulting George Floyd than you will for insulting Jesus Christ.
Yeah, for sure.
You can walk down walk down the street with a t-shirt saying Jesus is gay. Girls barely go to church. If they do, who knows what they were doing the night before. None of it means anything. And then if you go and find a Christian that says this trans person has changed gender, what do you think about that? Christians are so soft, they're gonna go, well, I hope he finds redeem, and I hope he finds guidance. Haram, bro. Haram. No, you didn't. It's haram. And I like that it's yes and no. And what's the point in a religion if you're too afraid to say what you believe in, or afraid to stick up for it, or afraid to defend it? Then what's the point in any of it? So I feel like it's the last true religion. I feel like it's the last religion on the planet. And they don't seem to understand that the basic law of the universe is that power vacuums get filled. This is the basic law of the universe. If a tiger arrives in a brand new habitat and there's no other predators, it's going to destroy and eat all the rabbits and it's going to take over.
Facts.
Anyone who's in the West who's concerned about the spread of Islam should be more worried about the absolute fall of Christianity. The reason people revert to Islam is because they're looking for God and they can't find God anywhere else.
Yeah.
It's Christianity's fault for being so weak. It's not even about numbers. It's about strength of belief. If you wake up and you want to truly live a religious life, and you want to feel like you have religious conviction, and you want to feel the fraternity of a religious life, and you want to have the boundaries and constraints of a religious life, you're going to be attracted to Islam. You're not going to be attracted to Christianity because you can wake up and say, I'm a Christian, and nothing changes.
Yeah.
Nothing changes and nobody cares. And that is Christians' fault. So I've had a lot of people complain at me as if, like I said, as if my personal choices are something I should, I mean, it's kind of, I'm self-analyzing as I talk here. I find it very, very interesting that Christians look at Islam as a threat, as opposed to just understanding that it is a massive power vacuum because Christianity feels godless, and you do not feel God in Christianity anymore. And that's the reason that people are so attracted to Islam. That's the reason I was attracted to it, because I respect it. How can you believe in something you don't respect? I don't know, and that's a general question for anything. You have to respect it. You have to look at the creeds and say, okay, I respect that. I respect how they defend their religion. I respect how they're black and white on certain issues. I respect all of these things. Also, it's kind of interesting because if you want to measure the success of a religion, you can measure it in regards to how many people follow it. But I think the number one measure of success for a religion is how well it preserves the sanctity of a society. I think that if you want to say, is this a successful religion? Well, then you'd look at the society which it governs and say, are the creeds of the religion being adhered to by the society that it governs? I would argue that most Islamic countries have an Islamic feel. I would argue you'd avoid a lot of the LGBT garbage. You'll avoid a lot of the woke insanity. You'll avoid a lot of the feminism, which has destroyed the West, and all these things, because Islam is being adhered to and it's keeping the society functioning. Do I go to Christian countries and feel like Christianity is preserving them? Christians must feel a deep resentment towards Muslims, especially the true believers, because we stick up for what we believe in, and they want to, but they can't because their own religion has become so woke and almost betrayed them. All the Christians I speak to who truly believe, and I've spoken to a lot of them, they are very envious of Islam. And then I'm like, well, then what's the delay? But they feel like an affinity to Christianity because they were raised with Christianity or they're born Christian, and perhaps they see Islam as a Middle Eastern religion, which is kind of interesting because Christianity is a Middle Eastern religion.
Yeah.
They're from the same place. I read somewhere that only 18% of Muslims are even Arab. I think the largest, there's obviously a huge black proportion. And Indonesia is a massively Islamic country. Malaysia.
I think Islam just crossed over 3.5 billion Muslims globally. Wow. That's more than half the population of the world.
If you believe in God, I don't see how you cannot be a Muslim. I just don't see the attraction to any other religion that makes any kind of sense. And you can also look at this from the ideological and the theologian standpoint in regards to what happens after we die, and superpowers and Allah and Muhammad, peace be upon him, and all these things that we don't quite understand. But you can also discuss it right here on earth with what you see, like I said about preserving the sanctity of a society. So you sit and say, okay, well, if you're Christian, how is Christianity saving your children from the oncoming enslavement? How is your Christianity saving your children from the slave mind programming? How is Christianity protecting you? How is Christianity helping your neighbors? How is Christianity preserving anything? Whereas Islam, it's kind of interesting because someone else said this who was smarter than I, and I can't remember where I heard it from. But they said, whenever you see a post-apocalyptic Christian society in a movie, it's just the purge and everyone's out to kill each other. When the meteors hit or whatever and America's under attack, there's snipers on the roof and everyone's trying to get food and everyone's struggling. Whereas if you look at a post-apocalyptic Islamic society, which exists right now, they're on the earth right now, they function and people still love each other. And it's the belief in God that keeps them together. I mean, there's no legal system in Gaza that's stopping people from committing crime. It's God, and it's God alone. And then you sit and say, okay, well, the strength of that religion, even in the harshest possible conditions, can preserve to a degree the sanctity of society and human nature. I don't think a Christian country could do that. If you put a Christian country under the level of destruction Gaza's currently going through, I don't think people would sit and say, well, Jesus says I shouldn't steal. In fact, if you look at what happens during natural disasters in America, it's the absolute opposite. It's just looting and chaos. What is a Christian country anymore? I don't know. What is a Christian country? God is the final barrier. The final barrier to the slave programming is always going to be God, because there's a firm right and there's a firm wrong. They're going to come along and convince us all that the sky is green. And it's unfortunate because slowly they're going to win. The final protection is God, the book that says yes and no. Simple. It is, but it's only Islam. This is the point, because Christianity is under such heavy attack now, and they've watered it down and diluted it so deliberately. They've done that. They want to do it to Islam. They're going to try very hard, but it's not going to be easy. It's still going to be a lot harder. Whereas Christianity doesn't protect anything anymore. There's no Muslims
firm
right and there's no firm wrong.
Exactly.
Yeah. So that's why Christianity is under deliberate attack, because they don't want people to be religious. Because when you're religious, you're going to have a firm right and a firm wrong. The primary goal of the Matrix, and the primary goal is for them to get you in a position where you'll accept the slave programming regardless of what your own eyes tell you. That's their primary goal. Their primary goal is for you to walk through life with a mask on, full of vaccine, seeing everyone around you fully functioning and healthy and scared of a pandemic. Or walking through life and meeting a nice gentleman and calling him a ma'am. That's what they want. They want you to ignore your eyes. So, and it's unfortunate, they've already got a huge percentage of the populace there who will walk outside and see the sky is blue, watch the news and being told it's pink, and look at it and go, oh, I must have made a mistake.
Yeah,
it's
must have
pink.
made a mistake, yeah.
So that's their primary goal, and religion prevents that. So they've come along and they've deliberately assaulted God, and they've assaulted the Christian faith, and it was a test for the Christian people to stand up and resist, and they failed. So when they complain now about Islam conquering Western nations, I say, well, you failed. You failed. It's now a power vacuum. Power vacuums get filled, and anybody with a true heart and true conviction who truly wants to respect God is going to be attracted to the Islamic faith, because you have failed.